over 142 friendos to collect, and over 100 segments, ranking every single one of the little freaks. Now, you see the channel, you see the endless Pokemon slop I've been churning out. I'm just here to bully Palworld, but trust me, I hold zero loyalty to that chubby billionaire rat. I maintain no agenda. Modern Pokemon, Palworld, the both of yous are you're as bad as each other, for a lot of different reasons, but the only one relevant to this video is the whole plagiarism thing. An unavoidable topic here, but I can promise you my care towards that topic begins and ends with making a hopefully entertaining video about it. I hate to drop this on ya, but if you were legitimately upset about all that, you got worked, brother. The bad ripoffs are so blatant that it could only have been done for the sake of free promotion using Pokemon's name, and honestly, respect the hustle. Big baller advertising move. So I'm ranking by design. Don't care if Glumpo knows how to wax a mean pole down the mines. If he looks like a nonce, he's getting no respect from me. If they're a bit too inspired, the ones that have Nintendo summoning that cease and desist order like it's the seal of Orichalcos, they're probably going straight to the Shadow Realm, dead tier. If there's a friendo who's blatantly double-cheeked up like a Mega Aggron, you think I'm gonna sit there and be the bigger man, turn in the other cheek? Like, must have been the wind. But I swear, there's plenty of pals that I think are banger-worthy. I'm a lot more lenient than I probably should be, because I still kind of like some of the unoriginal ones. I just go on about this based on how much I like them for whatever reason. So here's how much I like every Palworld specimen. You know, everyone's bigging up this game as Pokemon with guns. It's about time, gamers. Equip your cargo shorts and Hyrulean green teas. Hold the shore for men, because it's time to unite, gamers. An idea that always got thrown around in parodies and newgrounds. But I've always thought, in a Pokemon-esque world, why would you even want guns when you have Pokemon? Like, you can shoot hyper beams, but nah, you want to play about with desert eagles. Yeah, well, you could be playing with a squid with a black belt. Then I got raided by a horde of what called themselves Lavander, and I had to change a heart. Suddenly, I was ecstatic, gleaming that guns were usable in the game. That's why in Pokemon's world, the 6 Pokemon to a team lore would be broken on the daily by myself. I'd have a 7th, maybe even an 8th for a secondary unregistered Pokemon strapped on me at all times in case Pal on the prowl tried to get the jump on me. Sometimes fainting, it just isn't good enough. It isn't permanent enough. No. You deserve to perish. Lavander deserves mass erasure. It gives me the same primal fear I experienced as a 7-year-old whenever the Kanker sisters came onto my TV to assault the Ed boys, especially that one time with their toes. I just can't with this. It's so uncomfortable to stare at. Look, Rouge the Bat is about as far as I can handle. Very tame. Oh, I know. I'm sorry, but that's my final offer, okay? You're not getting weirder than that. Got the wrong demographic here for this kind of thing. I'm not interested in any gal pals at the moment. Verdash has to arguably be the worst one. I don't think there's an argument to be made, actually. You can't all act stupid. You all know why. The devs definitely know why, because it's fully intentional. But let's entertain the idea that it wasn't intentional. Let's say somehow they were trying to pass it off as some kind of coincidence. They're both furry rabbits. That happens sometimes. No. Don't try and gaslight a gaslighter. So I used to pull the exact same thing for my school assignments. Never for anything actually public or important, and in this case, heavily profited on. Like when I was 16 in media, I designed a comic book character that was pretty much just Randy Savage Duke Nukem. Called him Admiral Machismo. But even then, I reckon what I did was much more transferable than something like this. Don't need me to tell you. This is no coincidence. It's just for the free promotion. The guy's ripped from a Pokemon called Cinder Race, and they called him Verdant Dash. I don't really care about all that controversial chat that only exists online, because it's comical how blatant this one is. Like, that's the whole point. It's only legitimately dodgy when you're borderline vertex to vertex ripping 3D models out of Pokemon, which is not really my expertise to say if it's true or not, but like, come on. At least I gave Duke Nukem an anchor for a hand. I'm surprised at how not plagiarized a lot of these creatures have ended up. But Grass Cinderace, you'd think this would be a huge compliment for a creature based on a football playing Pokemon, but no one can be defending that. Conceptually, this could have been believable. People are constantly designing humanoid rabbit creatures, almost exclusively for evil intentions, nefarious motivations. You know who you are. Your parents still have no idea, did they? Why you watch Space Jam at 1 AM every night from ages 11 to 15. Well, I don't know. I just thought you really like Michael Jordan. This is just a different, more legislative and ethically uncreative kind of evil. With Astagon, that's how it's, but you know the one I'm on about, right? You know, the one that got a lot of heat for looking like a Pokemon? In Pokemon terms, Mega Aggron is already arguably a bit over-designed. The Palworld guys argued otherwise and whacked out the polymerization with a Zekrom or something. That ain't Mega Aggron. That ain't even Mega Blocks. Even though it's transformative enough seemingly, you still have to admit, what a mess. What a complete mare of a design this one is. How can I witness something fly right in front of me, yet still fully believe this weapon is immobile? I feel over encumbered just looking at the guy. I feel like I have to eat 50 cheese wheels just to walk again. And really pushing it here with, oh, creamy Eevee. And, I mean, really pushing it with Kremis, talking like Sam Sulek finishing up a bench press set, kind of pushing it. That right there is Jumbo Eevee. Hardly any grafting put in to even pretend it's anything else. Can't convince me that's not just an Eevee in a Team Rocket level disguise. Were they just banking on Nintendo's legal team having the perception skills of Ash Ketchum? Absolutely illegal friendo, if I've ever seen one. Criminal. Gulag. Ignore whatever agendas you might have had like a month ago for or against Palworld. You know, this one has to be a unanimous decision from both sides here. If any of you actually exist who firmly believe this one's a coincidence or it's passable, if you actually exist, it's not a piss take. For your sake, please do not let me know where you live. Me and my friends, we'd rock up to your house, rip all the copper wiring from under your house completely risk-free because we'd have a pair of these on. Jeez, Fanglobe. This one looks like it was made intentionally to get free advertisement from memes that say, can I copy your homework? Yeah, I just change it a little. Haha, that's one of them ones. But no, this one isn't it. You might get the pass from all the TikTok clip streamers who've only ever played a game that came with temporary clout for the month. But anyone who isn't lying to themselves, the only chance your eyeballs have for salvation is a handshake off Jesus. You can see through this. Like, I don't even know why I'm having to explain it. Like, it's just very blatant, just stating the obvious. Near enough a one-to-one Cabalion here with a few little quirks added there. Bad developers. Bad, naughty. Cabalion's George Costanza in that Seinfeld episode where he finds out another short, stocky, balding man is with the girl he wants to get with. If you're part of that whole Palworld Defense League that was online a month ago, you should agree. You should want less of this, really. Robbie. This is one of them semi-pro plagiarized ones. It's not quite the full deal. People say Superior's body, which is probably true given the track record, but you know, might as well sue Cheese String while you're at it. The Primarina hair is very suspect though. Pretty sure someone's already proven that with the 3D models. Syncs perfectly, like shifting together a photo of two of history's most prolific figures, Benjamin Franklin and Chris Chan. Even if the photo going around with the 3D models lined up is just a load of gas, hair is such a fluid thing that this clearly isn't a coincidence. It's at least traced and based on it. It absolutely can't be a Pokemon fans clutching straws moment. They're clutching straight bunda. Where this one, big, meaty bunda, pointing out that the hair has the exact same curves and spikes. Palworld's next expansion could introduce Alex the Hedgehog, and it's just a model rip from Sonic Frontiers, and all these weird Palworld defenders would come out exposing their brain rot like, oh, what, Sega owns hedgehogs now? You can't copyright a hedgehog, bruh. Shut your mouth. It's just one of them. If you rip off enough things and combine them, is it still a rip off, or is it carved its own identity? That is the million-dollar question about this whole fever dream of a game. Maybe it looks good to you, to someone who has more fresh eyes for this kind of thing, but for me, you know, someone whose eyes grow weary from staring at fictional Japanese creatures, to perform as a clown on the circus that is the internet is dead. Assets being stolen or not, it doesn't matter. It's just boring. There's a lot of creatures like this. Robin Quill. What a unique and out there design. Almost iconic. Like Superman. No, that's not the one I'm looking for. Superhero. Now that's one. Superman. Classic. Absolute icon. It must be an overseas thing. You know, for some reason, he's only found on the shelves in Thailand, displayed in an Avengers box. What if we took Decidueye and removed most of his charm? You know what? At least it's not a one-to-one model. It's no Kremis situation. They've at least made the, I'll admit, successful attempt at giving Decidueye the Mega Bloks treatment. In a sense, they at least packaged Decidueye in a Digimon box. You don't have to defend this one as if it's like, what, you don't know superhero? From the Avengers movie? Like, even the sellers aren't pretending otherwise. That's just straight up Superman. A very lucky Superman deep in Thanos' box. Here you can easily claim based on Decidueye. You don't need to justify it further than that because it is fair game. Uninspired, but fair game. Even had the terraform sorted as well. They might as well have at least tried to cover their tracks more and only use the recolored version to save face a bit. But that wouldn't have been the smart move. No, because the free Pokemon press, that was the smart move. What a fever dream to witness young Berserker's face. One of the channel mascots here on this plump body, a little off-putting. It's just that kind of copying or unoriginality that didn't have to exist, really. Pokemon don't own the rights to an eye and mouth combo, obviously, but like, they knew people were gonna clock how traceable this was. It's disappointing because a Cheshire Cat monster, it's not a bad shout at all, and it's a very easy set of features to get a bit transformative with. Tansy, well versed with grass attacks, snuggles, and AK-47s. Monkey with a gun? Nah, didn't laugh. Nah, nice try. Take that to Reddit. Take that gold with you. You can't bypass such a dead design just because it's strapped up. If anything, I feel safer if the monkey had an AK-47, because that way its hands would be fully occupied, whereas previously it may have tried to find an occupation for its hands by tearing my face off. Either way, dead design. Like NFT game level uninspired. It had me thinking, are these the designs the Palworld gang batch up whenever Bulbapedia is down for maintenance? One of the designers was forced to creatively raw dog it for the day when they didn't have the Pokedex on hand. And what'd you end up with? Haha, funny monkey with weed thing on him. It is Pokemon, but funny weed and gun. Lifmunk, just not appealing to look at. It looks pretty vile to me. I can't really tell if it holding a submachine gun changes that, unless it's aiming it like Kurt Cobain, then probably not. I just don't like him. An absolute platitude of a creature. This is the kind of thing you have to politely put on the fridge when someone's kid shows off their drawing to you. But once they go to bed, the boogeyman, ooh, he conveniently shows up and pours his Fosters on it. Ribbony. This one has me feeling like Mr. Burns ready to press that button under his desk to reveal his team of 10 high-priced lawyers to attack. I know this one's transformative. There's no existing little plushie character who looks just like this. It just feels like a really dirty transformative. It feels like it's ripping something off. I just can't tell. Another platitude of a little creature. With these two Night Pals, I don't think they're full-on rip-offs, really. That's not where I'm going with this. They're at least, like, partially transformative at minimum. But obviously, they're gonna get compared to the Pokemon ones. And when you go and do that, oh, why'd you have to do that? These two get folded. They get done in by the exposure of going neck and neck with designs, you know, that actually have a bit of charm to them. I get why people would like this pair, but not as legendary creatures. More like the same way you might like the guy who works the doors at the Imperial City. Because to me, these two look a bit soulless. No aura radiating from the pair of them. You'd get a better charisma check off Gaia the Fierce Knight. And not talking the man, talking the piece of cardboard. They could maybe fill in as a Final Fantasy mini-boss duo. But I guarantee, if that were the case, they never would have left a lasting impression on you. I feel like if you really enjoy these, then you've just not been about. You've not seen many monsters, have you? A lot of Palworld fans aren't Pokemon fans or like monster gacha games or whatever fans. These kind of night monsters, they've been in like every game that's come out since Dark Souls. I've not even played like, I don't know, Elden Ring, but I guarantee an hour of playing that would sort you out. Calibrate your standards a bit. Jeez, 3 minutes of a Bayonetta boss fight would get you sectioned. Gorirap. I feel kind of racist. Sorry, rap. Not only have you made me sound racist, but you look clapped. All right? Simple as. Criminal. Vile. Get out of my building. Dire Howl is another one facing accusations of the moral theft. It does seem a similar size, although both this and Lycanroc are effectively just generic wolf. So I don't know, legally, I guess it's down to eye of the beholder. As far as fictional Japanese ranker on the internet goes, I just think it's kind of dead. Not a lot of flair going on there, is there? So this one's similar to my stance on I'll say it, Yajirobe. Asset stealing, it could have been, but you know, looking at the end result, you could convince me it's royalty free anyway. No commercial license needed for your base form wolf, or you're gonna get sued because they used the Calibri light of fictional monsters. I've seen more spice from the leftover dust of an original's Pringles can. I'm not even comparing it to Lycanroc. Even if that didn't exist, Dire Howl would still be painfully below average to me. I don't even think the furries would care about this one. For a Stallion and for a Stallion Noct, and these These are meant to be legendary. They're second last in the Pokédex hierarchy-wise. This is like their Mewtwo slot. At minimum, it's like a Dragonite slot. A max level 50 boss. These look offensively generic for pals of such alleged prestige. Somehow, they've managed to make the Pokemon duo of Spectria and Glastrier look even more unfinished. I can't even say they look AI generated. That'd be a bit too easy. It's a low-hanging fruit, isn't it? No, I reckon the devs outsourced this one straight to Fiverr. And then some Indonesian man AI generated them. Cativa, I'm feeling indifference, leaning towards disdain. But mostly indifference. Seems like a mildly annoying Animal Crossing neighbor than Pokemon. Like if you had a desk job in Animal Crossing, Cativa would be the office snitch, a slave to the Palsphere or slave to Tom Nook. Much to ponder. Hustlers must watch. To me, it's one of them creatures purely there to exist as enhancement talent. You know, he's the lower card. He's there to make the other pals look more impressive. Entry-level pal, just about made the cut. You need the Cativas around early game to underwhelm you, to set you up for when you stumble down the road and see Gomos sat out of nowhere like, oh, where'd you come from? They should have just done Scooby. Just do a Scooby instead, like, rip off other creatures, not this My Little Pony thing. No one cares about it. This is just, I reckon it's one of those kids' drawings again that surprisingly goes missing from the fridge door after bedtime when the boogeyman, ooh, we burned it with a Zippo lighter. This is the pony to Santa Claus gets you when your dad's been laid off. Whatever remnants of the brony movement remain, I think even that crowd wouldn't be swarming Toys R Us to be getting the latest Ruby figurines. Ruby, hey, you got no jars to be worried about. It'd be an absolute marketing failure right there. Hasbro wouldn't be pleased to hear that not a single child got their jaw spun by a 300-pound man wielding a katana fighting for the latest Ruby figure. For these few, I just don't care about them. I've decided to just segment up all of the uninteresting ones to me, or just pet OC ones, because I'm finding even I'm drawing a blank here. I don't even know what to say about them. In fact, you could probably rope in the last 2 or 3 segments of this too, but I actually had a bit to write about. So there's Vixie, Wollipop, Floppy, Flambell, Nox, the Jolt Hogs, and I think that's it. I really am trying to come up with passable segments for these generic ones, but it's like my brain is protesting. It's refusing. Like, no, I'm not helping you out here. You started up an inner monologue with me for this. Why'd you have to waste my time? You're taking up all my RAM as it is with the likely schizophrenia. Now you want me writing all these essays on Neopets. No, get out of here. Get out. Do it yourself. See, this is one I've been saying Pokemon should have pulled the trigger on ages ago. The mythical Kelpie, like a shape-shifting aquatic ghostly horse. It lives in Scotland, I think. He's got a Celtic season ticket. And although this isn't exactly what I had in mind, if Game Freak aren't gonna do it properly, it's a free property, baby. You need more of those and less of the dodgy ones to carve their own identity with the creatures. But sadly, for something that's conceptually good, the myth of Kelpie is that it's a shapeshifter. And if that's the case, it's using its powers to flop about as Palworld's answer to Seal. Just pure indifference. Making it red and spicy, it helps a little bit, but still, no Macy's Day Parade inflatables for Kelpsy in our dimension. Like Pokemon, Palworld also needed to grow its batch of these lukewarm grass monsters. This is absolutely due to my overexposure of Pokemon coming in and playing a factor, because these kind of plant mons, they're all over the place. These aren't necessarily bad at all, but I just don't personally care about many of them in Pokemon to begin with, let alone the selection they have on offer down Bucko Park. I'm not saying at all in this entire video the developers clearly used AI thing. It's just with end results this bang average. I'm just saying AI might as well have done the job for you. Is it really that unbelievable to think it's possible these could have been whipped up by Plankton's computer wife Karen? Shadowbeak, very OC name, very dodgy design. Like there's a little bit of Arceus, a bit of Zekrom maybe, quite a bit of Corviknight too. I'm not looking to add fire to potential lawsuit or whatever. That's just my face value interpretation of it, because it's definitely got enough going on for it to be its own thing, don't get me wrong. I just think there's far too much going on. It's like the developers had a Bohemian Rhapsody moment where they just put together every unfinished asset they had into one, except they didn't make an all-time classic. No one is singing about Shadowbeak when the lights come on in a club and you're getting kicked out at 4 AM. They made like,
what if Hagrid had an evil Shadow Buckbeak and he weren't Hagrid, he was Shadow Hagrid. Shagrid. Right, come here, Dobby.
Lunaris. Don't even want to be Googling this one. I never thought I'd live in an age where Sonic X Shadow was less of a gamble going on your digital footprint. I've got to say, it's just not for me. An objectively fine design. I just know the rest of the internet has a much tighter definition of the word fine.
Crispy.
With this Loop Moon fella, I'm not keen on these kind of ones, even in Pokemon, I think. Once again, bit too OC for my liking. This doesn't even look like a fake mon. This somehow looks like Palworld's own equivalent to a fake mon. He's a fake pal. Hattress and Wixen. I bet a lot of people, they kind of like these ones, but not me. No, I can see right through them. The Hogwarts full kit ain't phasing me. Just makes them look like Shagrid victims. I'll tell you what they are. They're just a bunch of Vixies in denial. They're right there with them, the bland pet OC designs, but they're trying to gaslight you into thinking they're powerful and semi-rare, walking about with their fancy sorting hat and their wizard sleeves. Yeah, well, Rule 34, my friend. Every single one of these creatures will have a wizard sleeve once the wrong artist finds them. Polaris is meant to be like a top tier in the world of PAL. Nah, I'm not buying it. There's some great winged buddies roaming about this currently desolate landscape, and you know, this is the rare one. You take away the Mario Sandworld skin, and it's just a little zone Corviknight. He's that guy you know who suddenly got tattoo sleeves done, but you fully know it's just to compensate because they have the personality of a fax machine. 3 bands invested in patchwork just to pull, hoping the girls are too distracted from realizing he has 0 chat. Polaris, he's just that guy. He's doing all of this to gaslight you into thinking it's a mythical when we can all see it's just a front. What is this? Cotton candy alpaca? Does this call for a brofist? I know that might be unironically. Take my epic upvote, egg boy. Worthy for some of yous, but not for me. I think designing fictional monsters, nothing's really off limits. But something about this, it just feels really out of place. Horde of these sticking out on a plain field has me thinking I've died in battle and gone to Carl Weezer's Valhalla. Univolt to me gives off Fakemon that they tried a bit too hard with. It's like something I probably would have tried to draw in school when I was 7. Spikes everywhere, lightning bolt horn, green and gold, cause Island. I think that specific green and gold is just off-putting. They just aren't complimenting each other. Those colors aren't even making eye contact. They're both staring at their phones on their calculators, hoping the other decides to piss off out of awkwardness. I think it would have been well worth the potential Zeb Striker allegations, which I think it already has, to have just made the body black. Kilomari is an interesting enough one for me, if only for looking like something you could do kickflips on in Mario Sunshine. They're testing the lines a bit here though, aren't they? The eyes are definitely Esper's, mine are foul, but it is dead on. Look, I don't make the rules, gonna have to give you a yellow for that one. Consider yourselves lucky, it's just a warning. That Cinderace, that was a straight red. That's a 3-game ban right there. Celeray, you know, it's alright. It'll do, don't it? And all that. It just doesn't have the charm of a Mantine, does it? They're only comparable by creature and franchise, obviously, but, you know, Celeray just gives an off-putting energy to me somehow. Mantine seems like he'd be about the crack, seems like a jolly fella. He's a good dad, young right below his wing, but Celeray looks as though the only enjoyment it brings children is by being one of those horrifying kiddie rides. About 2 Animorph frames shy from becoming that fat, disgusting, hyper-realistic plane. Don't know his name. I don't want to know his name. Fuddler is just a wee bit generic for me, but that's alright. Sometimes things have to be a little plain for the spice to kick in. A harmless lil goon, at least outside of Russia, where he can't make a living winning slap contests with those bladed frying pans he's got on his arm. He's okay, and it's far enough separated from Drillbur and Excadrill that, you know, easy come, easy go. Nightwing stepping up and taking the mantle of generic bird for Paland. But even then, for what's effectively their equivalent of Unpheasant, it's not anywhere near as bland as it could have been, really. Perfectly serviceable outside Greg Scrounger, car windshield graffiti artist, you know, just common bird antics. You just have to ignore that name. Something called Nightwing. You'd expect it to resemble something, you know, at least a little bit more devious.
Alfred, the Joker's captured Nightwing.
There's at least 5 other pals I'd expect to be called Nightwing before I choose your man here. No, I get the wing part, but Night, he's shrouded in mystery. No, he's more like a daytime TV wing. He's like a whatever time slot the Jeremy Kyle show plays in wing. Rushroar is one that transcends just Pokemon. It's a universal RPG creature, the classic boar, the ones you'd grind on for leather and some easy XP. No one's buying graphic tees with Japanese writing across it of the Rushroars of the world, but you know they're robust, stout, a constant, solid hand in the ring. Chickapee looks as though it could be from literally any game, any medium even. It's like a public domain asset you could slap in anywhere, from an NFT ape game to a box of chicken nuggets from the 2-star hygiene rated boss man down the road. This looks like something you'd see in a classic Pokemon episode to remind you that plain animals do exist. Like a Torchic looking over into a farm and seeing all of these non-benders, these civvies, these civilians. Lamball, another perfectly serviceable entry-level buddy, and if nothing else, really satisfying creature to fill in with the bat. And even if Lamball were a blatant cut and paste of Pokemon's Wooloo, I don't care about Wooloo. I'm not going to start pretending now at the defense of billionaire corporation. And either way, I'd argue Palworld's outdone him here a little bit. You've got to pick and choose your battles if you're going to go all in on the plagiarism argument, and this one just isn't it. He's just a little Kirby ally. What's he done to you? All he's done is slave away making crates for you on the Amazon warehouse shifts you've trafficked him into, kept you warm at night with the very fluff of its back, and provided you with sustenance with the very meat of his very bones. Respect the Lamball, the backbone of Bucko's zone. Can't catch too many of them though. They'll form a union. You know, you'll have to pay him and that. Caprati, another Greenman, but unlike a lot of the grass ones, he's his own guy. Doesn't really fall under the grass spectrum of plant creatures where you could blur your eyes and forget who's who. It's not a bad interpretation of like the Venusaur or Torterra brand of pocket animal that hosts its own homegrown supply. It's not quite a Glaceon. It's not even worth clipping the nails off an Alolan Ninetales. But Foxicle is holding up perfectly fine. Honestly, if this were a Gen 1 Pokemon, I could easily see it being a classic. But you've got to adjust for inflation these days. This is standard practice now by 2024. In this day and age, there's kids across the world whacking these bad boys out pen to paper pre-baptism. We have another set of perfectly serviceable specimens. Much rather they go about and have them built like this and not just Steel. The Pokemon comparisons here though, they start and end at species. It's very obvious. Don't get me wrong, the Pokemon penguins are leagues above these two, but I don't even know why I'm having to see all these articles with side-by-sides with Piplup with titles like Palworld Plagiarism, barely third cousin passable, Blood Oath at best, more like a Maple Story mob. I don't think anyone's actually saying it's a Piplup clone. I actually refuse. I'm a non-believer of anyone who exists whose literacy for processing art is that tapped. Like, what do you think? Pokemon Diamond came out in 2006. You reckon Club Penguin, they've been sitting on a fat lawsuit because they made Piplup before them? Take a walk. Yeah, how about ya? Go hit the gym. Next up, we have the big man himself, Wee Depresso. Okay, why is this pal literally me? My Starbucks order be like. Perhaps canonically, the one pal that isn't allowed to be equipped with a gun. What a tragic existence. I thought Psyduck had it bad, permanently getting migraines. I'm not even talking about the depression thing. It cares about, no one cares about it. Imagine being a scientifically documented monster drinker. You can literally attack by shooting dark lasers, but still everyone's like, haha, look at this little goth. Sombat gives off the energy like it's one of them out-of-pocket, psychedelic secret Kirby bosses. Been hanging out with Waddle Dees for the past 5 hours, then night falls, and suddenly you run into Mark's soul. I'll rate those freaky out-of-pocket designs. I've got to give him credit for busting out a genuinely unique one, whether good or bad. But I've got to say, I think it's a bit much for me. It's a bit too busy for my liking personally, but I can see the vision. I just personally think it's the kind of vision I'd require a trip sitter to be sat in the room with me for. Thwack, as the name suggests. He just looks fuming, always advocating for these little creatures to have a bit of personality behind them from looks alone. Doesn't appear soulless, like a good few other pals. Doesn't appear to be mentally in a permanent state of waiting for the DVD logo to perfectly hit the corner of the screen. I kinda like him. You don't even need to clickbait me in with the whole Pokemon with guns title. I know he's strapped up. What a heifer to digest is the design of Blazermup. There's a lot going on there to unpack. This one's bridging into like Bakugan territory. They've gone like 4 layers out from the Pokemon wave now. Maybe that's not a bad thing. It does serve its purpose well of a site that conveys wrong neighborhood. The kind of specimen that you'll randomly walk in on. And you don't even aim the ball at him. You know that's a straight 0% catch rate. Unless the icon goes to the 10th decimal point, maybe you'll find a 1 on the end of there. It's the kind of jump scare that makes you turn around, go home, and invent the automatic machine gun in your garage. Cinemoth, he's just his own little fellow. I wouldn't really question this being involved in any creature-based game. Easily could have been a Kalos bug type along with Vivillon. Easily could have been one of those 2-star Yu-Gi-Oh cards that have 0 reason to exist. 500 attack points, no effect. The text on the card, he might as well just be chatting about his day to you.
Hey, Yugs, my card Cinemoth likes to float about and scran dust.
Excellent move, Joey. However, I now activate Swords of Revealing Light 5 times to make your sister blind once more. And end my turn.
So in the Yu-Gi-Oh world, it'd be a bum. And used by bums like Weevil Underwood. But as a pal, very jolly entity. T-Fant, simple but an effective one. I'm actually shocked. Out of 1,000 Pokemon, a water-based elephant that was never made somehow. Game Freak's designers, I reckon they've had like 20 drafts of something like this scattered through their offices since like 1999. Maybe it was just a bit too predictable for them. Did you not know elephants can actually spray water IRL? Okay, how original, Game Freak. Real mature, plagiarizing Sir David Attenborough documentaries once again. Finally, a pal that's a proper tradie. Name like Sparkit, that's a high-vis jacket pal, if I've ever heard one. Was built to be grafting on the pal assembly lines. I kind of like all the electric types this seems to be based on, so them all together, it works enough for me. Maybe a little busy, but I'd much prefer this than making it a full-on Pikachu clone. It has a similar tail, but that's where the comparisons start and end. Pokemon itself already has a dozen Pikachu clones, and if this were made for Pokemon, I don't even think it'd qualify for that. I mean, look at him. Sparkit's not even a greedy fat bastard. This Reindrix geezer, he's kind of solid, I suppose. But I reckon it's mainly the colors saving it here for me. Like if this had the same color palette as, I don't know, Vixie with brown antlers, yeah, you'd be done in. House pets here. Very huntable by upper tax bracket society. Maybe I'm blinded by color palette again. Maybe the black and yellow is masking a potentially very generic set of designs. But I'm sound with your man Rayhound. He's aesthetically sparking up the same node in my brain as this unreleased for now Boltmane. Debatably, our Luxray stand-in. Like, yeah, obviously, but I'm tired, boss. Just let them have their Temu Luxray. I'd say Arsox is just barely on the cusp of being in the upper bracket of pal. He's got that Typhlosion syndrome, where if he's switched off, he might look a bit goofy. Needs to keep the heating on with those flames, or else it just looks like the textures are failing to pop in for half his body. No, I'd expect those kind of technical issues in a Pokemon game, but Palworld, no chance. I heavily considered that the Mal pair would be chucked into the segment way earlier with all the pet OC ones that I had 0 brain power for, but the longer I stare at them, I kind of rate the pair of them more than I realized. I'm seeing the vision for Egyptian Umbreon. Feel like they're unique enough to stand on their own. Like if back in ancient times, Yami Yugi or Pharaoh Atem owned a few pets, he probably would have, who coincidentally enough also would have been used for slave labor. With Dazzy, I'm getting that Paper Mario charm off him. An almost even classic cartoon kind of charm with the hair covering the eyes. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to be mad at Palworld cranking out a design like this when Game Freak used the arceus given gift of free will to consensually devise something as freakish as Enamorous. Is that meant to be guard like on guard? Because that's nothing. There's nothing. You had Hun Guard right there. That's a bad pun too. But at least it's a pun. It's something that works. Unless it's literally just meant to be guard. That's it. No pun for you. Servants of the Elizabeth, which is a pun. The pun being around Queen Elizabeth, obviously. If you couldn't already tell the glaring similarities between the two, like that they both are currently trapped somewhere in a box, while at the same time kinda goes hard, subtly packing a design with some heat. That staff, big baller right there. I really can't tell what Sibylex's whole gimmick is. I can't tell if it's meant to be going for like a Frosty Hatterene kind of build, but either way, it's not too bad. An interesting, oddly terrifying aura surrounding it. Freezing cold in the dead of night. If I see this thing in the distance, I'm assuming my death could only be something that the writers of regular show could have drafted. Reptiro, the both of them, pretty decent. They're pretty decent. Like a Torterra Heatran hybrid, but nowhere near as unasked for, because Reptiro, he knows his role. Unlike Heatran, not a legendary, spawns in cartons of 12 in and around the cave, hatches from mid-tier eggs like Heatran probably should. Overall, unworthy of the static encounter, whereas the Digimon Terrakions, they know their role. As these two closely resemble a banger like Xerneas, you know it's gonna get at least a B- tier approval from me. It's all calm work. Actual deers are gonna be shaped like this to some degree, and with your early game bow and arrow that you use, you've got to have at least one deer, or else what's the point of this whole Joe Rogan back garden simulator? I'm actually not mad about this tacky golden terraform either. Has a nostalgic feel to it, like finding an old Christmas ornament you forgot about. The smell takes you all the way back to playing Mario Galaxy for the first time. The asbestos high alone tripping me out, sending me back to 8 years old Christmas morning, making shadows spray down soldiers. See Anubis? With the track record they've built, absolutely taken from Lucario. I'm not disputing that, it's just I'm not actually bothered by it. Well documented on my channel, historically, I think Lucario is a bit of a Mary Sue. And more importantly, I'm simply not too keen on the kind of Pokemon that have a suspiciously strong correlation between its fan base and puppy play. Surprisingly enough, I think Anubis is sound. They've taken Lucario, but at the very least, it's a genuinely decent enough spin on it. I actually respect the hustle of how crafty this was. They knew they had to do a Lucario clone, but they were smart about it. They were smart about getting away with it, because the ancient Egyptian spin adds not only a bit of much needed flair to someone's anthropomorphic OC, it adds a legally bulletproof concept. You might as well be raging at the developers for ripping off hieroglyphs. Oh, talk about anti-avant-garde. Anubis, more like nothing new about this. This one's been played out since before Jesus hatched from his large common egg. People were foaming at the mouths for a potential Nintendo lawsuit, and if they don't get anywhere, you know what next? Palworld versus the country of Egypt. Winner gets custody of the pyramids. With Mamorist, I actually think if this one were a Pokemon, no one would be mad. Would have gone past quality control easily. Like, it's not amazing, but it's a very robust design. You could slot that in any monster-based game. I can just envision the charm these two would have had animated as a Gen 5 sprite. Hocrates is one that, oddly enough, if you're going to compare to Pokemon, it has a bit of merit to it. Like, when Unova was made and they essentially rehashed the structure of the original 150 Kanto Pokedex in many instances, let's say that happened with the Johto Dex instead. Hocrates is a very believable Hoot placeholder. I could very easily see this being charming in Gen 5 sprite form. Toko, a zesty wee fella we have on our plates here. Looking like he spawned straight out of Foster's home for imaginary friends. Got the same vibrant color scheme as Xatu, but clearly they're not even remotely similar. I don't even want to hear about this one. Xatu looks into the future. Looking at Toko, I'd say it's about 50-50, whether it's even looking at the present. With my pocket monsters, dumb and pretty, just how as I like them. Okay. I was taking the piss earlier in the intro where I said like, oh, I don't care about Glumpo. When I first jotted that line down, I only knew who like 5 pals were. I didn't know there was actually gonna be one called Wumpo. And speaking of weird names, he's got a grass form, and I keep forgetting Wumpo Bottom is a separate form. I keep reading it like that's his legal government name. How you doing, mate? Wumpo Bottom. I'm here to fix the boiler. Yeah, my dad does know him, and it's actually pronounced Wumpo Bhutan. Okay, and it's like the new Ralph Lauren, so yeah, get your bag up before thinking you could dialogue with me again, kid. I always like these abominable fur monsters, shrouded in mystery as well as the fuzz. Easily could be slotted in for a Mighty Boosh episode, getting lost in a mythical forest, and Mr. Wumpo Bhutan, Wumpo Bottom, emerges and raps to you about drinking tea with a rhinoceros. Within the spectrum of caloric surplus dragons, Wyvern over here is leaning On the more whimsical side, a sleep with a quiven is said to be a heavenly experience. And here's where I'd probably say something like, heavenly experience? Yeah, cause next to that, Angelic Thunder, you're one night terror away from going to heaven. But they had first draw. They beat me to it. It's already canon. Never even had the chance to truly speak about quiven folding you in its sleep like Respucia Lattimore. One could only dream. Imagine your cause of death being you fed your pet a block of cheese after midnight and it dreamt about chasing a giant squirrel. Now I'm sure getting crushed by an obese, sweaty dragon would in fact be a heavenly experience for some of you out there, but trust me, heaven's not where you're going. Dynasum is understandably so facing the allegations, got plenty of court summonings coming up in the near future to tend to for its suspiciously Gudra and Meganium-like belly and neck and face. But legalities be damned if it's illegal to be a sucker for chubby, long-necked bowling pin dinosaurs with their little circular underbelly, because you know Stone Cold likes the little White Castle little underbelly. And you're gonna have to chuck me straight into Azkaban or wherever, some big shed 100 meters away from the students like Chagrid. Once again, they had the electric form right there. Could have easily avoided, at the very least, the Meganium comparisons. You know, if they didn't actually want the free promotion. Once again, big baller move. Out of all pals, I would firmly place a bet that Mozzarina, that's not going to be anyone's least favorite. No chance. This is your most hated pal. Don't even lie to me when Lovanders are lurking the same streets as our children. Simple, but easy. Just a straight inoffensive tidy design. Maybe not logistically tidy. That girth is unreachable. To milk one of these bad boys, you gotta roll under it like you're fixing the brakes on a car. At first glance, I couldn't for the life of me understand what hangnews were meant to be. Now I see it's the only creature with the facility to be reaching under that belly and get to yanking. It's hard to really say from this limited footage, but I think there's a bit of potential for this mysterious winged creature, probably because for all 2 seconds you can glare at it, it's looking like a much more lean Reshiram with frosted blue tips all around. But I'm just gonna ignore that. I will turn the other cheek just this once. I will hit him with the, similar to Reshiram, must have been the wind. Don't have much to say about Pyron, just an all-around sound pal. Solid hand in the ring. Keeps the headlock real snug, worthy of the large egg waiting time. Not quite the huge egg, not the hour-long ones, alright? But a cemented spot in the pal deck mid-card. Definitely not anywhere near the level of Sideman Pokemon's Pyroar is at least. The Blue Flames Noct form does seem to have the higher weight capacity when it comes to carrying a bit of aura around it. I didn't really know what Orzhov was. Apparently, it was that weird, furry Garchomp. Looks like a Garchomp that's fuming because his missus forced him to dress up as a bee for Halloween. It too closely resembles Garchomp, but at the very least, if you're gonna go that far, you might as well make your version look decent in its own right. I'd say it's very shameless, but it's transformative enough. So as far as potential / half knockoffs go, it's one of the lesser evils. But once again, I think the color palette's blinded me. Vanworm is looking cold in both this and in crystallized form. It's almost like what Mega Aerodactyl could have and very much should have been. But more importantly, it'll forever have a special place on my lineup. Can always eat from my infinite berry pouch. It's a free bar for Vanworm and the duty he served, allowing me to bypass the whole map as early as possible, for letting me explore and hunt for eggs at zero risk, to cheese my way through filling up 90% of the PAL deck without even crafting a gun. Instead of grinding items and experience, wasting my time holding down the F key, waiting for a circle to fill up for up to 3 minutes at a time, I instead wasted it holding down WASD for up to 3 hours at a time, hoping the map would spawn anything of interest, and occasionally raining down fire blasts from above, which honestly, the most fun thing to do in the game. Felbat is one that's definitely earned its place as a late number in the PAL decks. He also has triple the claim to the title of Nightwing, and the guy'd actually have no use for a pair of wings. Has a mythical presence going for it, arguably more than a good amount of the actual legendary pals on offer. It's as if Darkrai took a more humanoid form. One that's not a coward, putting the thighs on constant display for the boys. Daydream pulling in clutch, a true ride or die pal, with the attachment to have them permanently out. Back in any beef you have, almost literally night and day, this and floppy. I don't care for the resemblance to something I chucked straight into the bland compilation segment way earlier. If anything, Daydream's existence just reaffirms that I'm dead on in thinking floppy is flaccid. You'll walk through an airport with both of these at either side of your shoulders. You're gonna be getting looks off people, but they're all gonna be staring at Daydream. That's the star out of this duo. Lylene Grass, chump, bozo, jobber pal right there. Pal? He's not even chum. Eons away from homie. Don't even start that one. But the other version, with the purple and blue tones, banger. Still not the most out there, but this is like a shiny Pokemon that completely salvages the original. In Pokemon terms, it's gone from spawning at a 70% rate when you lather a tree with honey to a static encounter on an island you'd only get a hold of with action replay hacks. Valet slipped under the radar for me. I never even met the fella. But I just had to go out of my way, because seemingly in Palworld, it's rare you find these insects or grass ones roaming about with this much flair to them. Even by Pokemon standards, this one would stand out much more than so many bugs or even plant-based grass types, looking like a high roller. Now this fella, Cognito, that's the kind of gap in the market Pokemon have been leaving out that Palworld should be filling. I know it's easier said than done. It's the whole South Park episode like, Simpsons did it, Pokemon's done it, Pokemon's done almost everything. But that's what makes ones like this little Plague Knight character stand out even more in a vast ocean of marketable plushies. Pokemon don't shy away from morbid lore, but maybe, for some reason, they don't want a Pokemon so closely associated with the plague that wiped out half the human population. Palworld's not trying to be PG though. That's clearly a unique selling point, so really, they should be basing creatures around subjects Pokemon wouldn't dare to even think about touching. Like Jesus. Or Man-Cheetah. Bushi is one of them where it's a bit too comically humanoid. I know you have ones like, I don't know, Conkalda, where it uses stone pillars to fight, but this is different. Like your man here, he got that katana off Amazon. He's got a sheath and everything. I just can't take him seriously. You'd laugh at someone dressed like this at a convention, assuming it's not a cosplay of a character. Somehow that image is even more hilarious in the middle of a forest. But it was gonna be low ranked until I read into the Bushi lore. The species turns into a sword when they die to be wielded by the next generation. Okay, alright, you've swayed me, Bushi. You've gone from fedorable to semi-banger. I just love the bluntness of the name War Sect. Never have I heard a phrase in the English language convey such an absolute unit from letters alone. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near the pits for a band called War Sect. When your metal lead guitarist looks like this, you know you're leaving the mosh pits in the back of an ambulance. That's not even a Pokemon. You can't even say that. That's a 6-star Yu-Gi-Oh summon right there. At least 2,200 attack points on it. Palworld getting a bit freaky, introducing a potentially more furry Incineroar.
Hey, whoa, what if Incineroar were freaky and he was a twink?
I do rate Twink Incineroar, especially in the other form. One of my all-time favorites in Pokemon, Houndoom. So these kind of Shadow the Hedgehog-coded creatures, the edgy bangers, don't care if you find them cringe. They're always gonna be raw. Okay, alright, okay, Beacon's got a bit of flair going on for him. Now, well, hold up, it's no Kilowattrel now. But as far as bird creatures are going in this game, this could have been far more generic looking. Even though within Palworld, many of the birds do follow a very similar body and sometimes face type. Once again, I'm respecting the hustle of them here, because they've even gone and added almost like a failsafe, giving an in-game lore explanation. The meta reason is probably just, we just wanted to get more mileage out of a model we made, but it's getting passed off as, I mean, some actually think they're a related species to Ragnarok, so, you know, it's not laziness if you think about it, it's actually world building. And speaking of the big man, Van Worm was lucky I gave up on leveling up once I saw how far away so many of the craftables were, knowing full well there's no chance I'm committing to the man hours needed to progress this far, at least without manipulating the settings. Because if I were more committed to the Palworld hustle, I'd have been roaming about on the neck of a Ragnarok. Just feels like a next-gen phone upgrade, Van Worm. I reckon he operates faster, much more energy efficient on the berry consumption, can burn down a village like twice as fast. Them 5G fiber network flames. Dig Toys. I think I've seen this one somewhere. When I was 6 playing Smash Bros. Melee and used to think he was called Bowser. I think that Pokemon Fusion website showed me Dig Toys at one point. Honestly, if they're going for the whole intentional fraud with some of the designs for the attention, like that's part of the parody appeal / potential cope excuse for no creative thoughts, I would have fully rated the devs if they just had the fusion generator take care of this one. I don't think it's bad for them to take inspiration from creatures that aren't related to Pokemon. I don't know why they don't do more of that. Bowser's got an elite design. I kind of welcome that inspiration here. Jetragon, the big daddy at the supposed back end of the Palcadex. The big triple one. Many drawing comparisons to the Latios pair. I agree with a good few plagiarized ones, but I've got to draw the line there. I think they're huffing the copium, ripping the bong dry, because it's definitely sound enough to fly on its own. Beautiful shapes and colors radiating off of them. Not the most original, sure, but even then, I ran into him by accident, and you just know, like,
Oh, that's a very important pal right there.
premium friendo, that one is. Like, I can give it credit for actually looking like a legendary. A lot of them don't. I couldn't even mentally digest what a Hangyu was looking at it from a semi-distance. It even had a giant one at the end of a dungeon. The game gave me a visual impairment aid, and it still wasn't enough for my eyes to feast on. But oh, no, it actually is what I thought it was, a noose. The guy's called Hangyu, shaped like rope. Then you go up to be executed, and the guy just tears you apart with his hands. Yeah, there's something morbidly comical about that. What a sinister gaslight. That's like some ancient cruelty. Like a Roman prisoner being sentenced to death, and they're like, yeah, nah, it's just combat. Pretty standard procedure. Then 10 minutes later, you find out you've sold out the Colosseum, dressed in a loincloth. You're the lead role as Hercules, who gets torn apart by lions in the final scene. Imagine on death row, eating your last meal. God's like, yeah, nah, don't worry. It's just to hang you. It's one of the easier ones. You sound. 10 minutes later, you're being live streamed, dressed in a minion costume, glued to the bottom of a giant claw machine as a giant hang you is trying to win you until there's nothing left. Mosander and the more fuming electric variation, you'd feel safe around a pair of arms like that. Got that boss Jinbei build. Can only imagine the legendary scraps him and Pangoro would have down the pub, down Circa's sesh hole. That's another bit of credit I can give to the Palworld side of things. They don't have to nerf the size of their monsters to fit in the world properly. I'd like to imagine if I could hypothetically trade a whale lord into my native land, it's gonna spawn in my world like an inflatable block of flats. It'd be like seeing a document on Alan Johnson's 32-inch plasma. When you have an absolute unit show up in Palworld, you are really seeing that unit. Broncherry in both forms, somewhat banger-worthy, especially if you could ignore the glaring similarities. Grass Broncherry gets all the Meganium ripoff comments. You may be onto something there, but I'm not listening. It's probably true, don't get me wrong, but you lot, all of you, since when did any of you start liking Meganium? All of you Pokemon crowds have been chucking Meganium on the grill since day one. Meganium is crisped. Absolutely none of yous like Meganium to begin with, unless the reason you're bothered by Broncherry is from the perspective of, full Pokemon? You rip off Meganium? Really? Maybe a little uninspired. Then fair enough. And again, they had the Aqua version right there. If they didn't want to be too direct about it, what a fine beast. Aesthetically, to me, Blaze Howl is like a Blaze Mutt. That didn't go overkill. That doesn't look as though Infernape got a Super Saiyan 10 form. Both versions work really well, equally as hell gatekeeping looking as the other. Although the Noct version does give off the energy of being something Bayonetta would summon and keep as a pet. So maybe it gets a slight edge over the original, even just for reminding me what it was like to be playing a fun game. Little fella in an Umbreon hoodie. A nice set of designs with a bit of charisma going for him. Good example of gimmick inspiration and not straight gimmick infringement from Scrafty. They've both got their own clear distinctions going on. Scrafty is just a bit of a goon, but Lee's Punk's walking about looking like Spyro the Dragon's plug. Then the Fire version is just him wearing a different colored hoodie. So is that where the type change comes from? For all we know, you're telling me Lee's Punk could have the type change potential of an Arceus if you led him about a big enough super dry. I didn't know what to make of this, I guess, this secret bonus comrade, Dragostrophe, or whatever he is. From the one photo I found, just seemed like a generic Zootropolis Zoroark. I thought this was just going to be another humanoid furry, those generic Lucario template ones that are meant to be the turbo epic. You'd be too quick to judge a still frame like that. You get the wide lens on, and then I see how I've misjudged Lord of Darkness, Lord of the Thickness. 50% of his body weight is in thigh meat. Top half Zoroark, bottom half the Quadfather, looking like Zoroark's been training with Tom Platz. Unironically, an oddly unique design. I'm glad to see it isn't just your standard furry human design. It's as if that's what it was supposed to be. One of those cool, anthropomorphic, MMA-based monsters. But somehow, inflation fetish deviant artists had their way with the lower half of his body. Yeah. Yeah, no, it is a banger. I'm just unsure how justifiably I can call it a banger. I want it to be. I mostly think it is. It's just, you went so far out of your way to make an interesting monster. You stuck the landing on the pun name and all. But why after all that would you suddenly call it quits? You creatively tapped out in the championship rounds because you're too lazy to design the face? Yeah, nah, it don't work like that. You can't just go, well, I mean, 90% of the character sheet I've sketched, or me, I don't know what the big deal is. I don't just trace Goku's hair on him. You think people have noticed? That's an extreme example, obviously. And yeah, it's only like 10% unoriginal, sure, if that. But it's still a glaring percentage that didn't need to happen. It just leaves me confused. Maybe even turbo flummoxed. That's a big one. Because it's a great idea for a terrifying sleep paralysis friendo to greet you in the night while you're trapped on your bed. I fully understand why they choose to tear off Giratina's face for it. Even if it's not Giratina specifically, it's definitely ripped off one of the 4 creation legendaries from Gen 4. Even Arceus, he has that same face. But aside from all that, it's actually banger worthy. It's just a shame they couldn't stick that landing fully. I'm seeing this one is somehow very split, but I don't really care. I personally absolutely see it, so for me personally, it's ruined slightly. I can't help that. If it looks clean to you, hey, more power to you. And let me ask you a question. I've always wanted to know, do you get like super hearing? You know, I've always heard the myth that your other senses heighten when you have no sense of sight. Ignoring that whole thing, let's forget about all that. Objectively speaking, the face, it still looks a little out of place. Maybe something different could have salvaged it, but again, to reiterate, menacing, overall banger on the friendo roster. So one of them got data leaked, this Mewtwo looking alien egg for your fridge. Say what you want about it. I actually do kind of rate it. It's another menacing case. I'm surprised I like it this much. I feel,
Yeah, a little foul for liking it.
so I've got to say, it's not helping that for one of their secret, ultra rare hidden pals, they very closely resembled it to one of Pokemon's most secret, ultra rare hidden pals. If this is meant to be like a Palworld mythical fella, then they arguably serve the same purpose in terms of the Pal deck Pokedex hierarchy. Again, plagiarism, I guess that's down to you or some lawyer. Personally, it's once again more of a any publicity is good publicity case to me. But to some people, this is apparently coincidental, I guess. Another reach. Doesn't resemble Mewtwo in the slightest. And if any of you people are here now, everyone else, skip ahead about 10 seconds.
All right, come here, listening. I got a few PSA 10 based Charizards. I know, boys. Look, I gotta get rid of these quickly. Just for you, I'm looking to sell for just 1,000 each. One band, my friendo, even.
Like easy money, silhouette test, give it the
Who's that Pokemon treatment?
everyone who knows could clock a breedable Mewtwo figure, but I'm not actually trying to make a huge statement on it being derivative. I don't even think it's proper plagiarism. It's no Verdash, is it? Whatever this thing's called, Dark Mutant Data Leak, is very high up on the list here considering. If you're gonna cop someone else's work, at least make it bang. And I can't lie to yous, this one's kinda raw. I do rate a bit of Surfen. It's a refreshing design to see. Not many fictional creatures out there repping the pool inflatable build quite like these two. It's almost like a Gen 2 gold and silver beta sprite that never got used, finally realized in 3D. Seeing refreshing creatures like this, that's the way to go. We've had enough ribbony, we're full. Couldn't possibly have another bite of creamus. Because the thing is, Pokemon is at least somewhat limited in what can exist. Palworld, you can take it anywhere. Man, just make my pogo stick fella that I'm still manifesting from last year real. Maybe I misjudged my manifestation. Maybe it's coming to Palworld. Their designs shouldn't have people fuming like,
This is stolen from Pokemon!
their monsters should have you saying, why haven't Pokemon designed something like this? So ones like Surfen, that's the way Palworld should go ahead if, you know, this doesn't die out more than it already has, and Nintendo doesn't permanently weld each one of the developers' fingers with Herstein's ring. Only this curse isn't the one of the werewolf, it's the one where you have to pay Mario 30% of your income for the rest of your life. You just can't go wrong with chubby dragons. And the Elphidrans are about as chubby as a dragon as you'll find on the market. Unless you count Deviant. In that case, the market's full. It's oversaturated. Plenty of obese, sweaty dragons on there. But I consider that more the black market for getting your fix on fictional animals. Non-canon. Alright, doesn't count. The Elphidrans, they're not even bowling pin proportioned. The guy's built like P.E. Piranha trying to get his 8 glasses of water in for the day. It's a little uninspired maybe, but it's like a classical uninspired look where it's not exactly recreating heavy metal, but you know, it's still heavy metal. It's like a comfort creature. We've had plenty of designs like this, but I don't really care. I'm just happy to see them. Gale Claw is taking me by surprise a bit. I've no idea what the general consensus is on some pals. Like in the Palworld community, who have they deemed as like the Gengars, the Crabrawlers? Which ones need to be on the watch list along with Galarian Mr. Mime? But Gale Claw to me seems like a massively underrated design. Clean specimen. That color palette is deceptively raw. Maybe Palworld's equivalent to an Unfezant. It didn't need to go so hard. But I think that's underselling it. It's not Unfezant. If Braviary is American, Gale Claw is gonna be Irish. America has Braviary. Ireland has IRAviary. Hails the fear. Hails the fear.
Hell's a yeah, brother.
Why aren't more creatures making good use of Zekrom or the primal form's light up veins? An all-time banger aesthetic choice if balanced out correctly, which I do think it kind of is for your man here. And a big baller headpiece to match. I didn't even think to chuck a friendo sphere at it. My first instinct was to dap it up. It's fairly close between what my favorite winged pal is. My top airborne friendo. But now I can't even choose which one out of the singular one I'd go for. Suzaku. I'd say both the red and blue are as good as each other. Some of the type changes these pals have can be hit or miss. But this one's more like when a Pokemon has an equally as good shiny form. One of the few bird pals that doesn't conform as much as the rest. Or has some kind of same common ancestor. Or common ancestor file and blender at least. I hatched this one from an egg and assumed I hit the jackpot of spicy eggs. Figured it was like a mythical pal, just for looking so much more prestigious than every other bird. Imagine only ever seeing Fearos your whole adventure, and out of nowhere, you hatch a Galarian Moltres. You'd think you've given birth to a deity, the god of pigeons infused with haki. Swee to sweeper, vintage naming. That is classic pocket monstering for any franchises right there. What makes that even better, I don't even think these things evolve. So canonically, I guess some Swees just end up with the Freakzilla gene, end up swollen and trimmed up using a Pringles can for reference. Sweepers are just the shacks of the Swee species, regardless of how stupidly high maintenance these would be to own in your living space. All that hair molting, roaming about like a reverse Roomba. Gotta give high ratings to the pair of them. Simple freak design in 101. King Packer, both of them. Magnificent specimens. It has the aura of like the wild card character that joins your JRPG party, like Queener from Final Fantasy IX. I felt like I had no business owning one of these so easily and so quickly into the game. I felt like I had to earn the King Packer, a dungeon locked in a cage with 30 stout men armed with flamethrowers guarding the key. Nah, it just loitering about, waiting for someone like me. Absolute clown, a jester of a human to come along and slap him about. We've hit red alert once again. Another big meaty mon has been spotted. Halfway through making this, I discover there's a few hidden buddies. I must have manifested my block of flats spawning in game. Because look at the size of that. I wanted to see a Whale Lord in real time, and I'm gonna see a Whale Lord in real time. An airborne Whale Lord at that. Might be getting ahead of myself, certifying this as a banger with only 5 seconds of screen time. Can tell this one might not age well when the 3D detectives start whacking out the comically large magnifying glass up to their monitors, giving the wireframes a good ocular pat down next to Kyogres and Whale Lords models. But let's just enjoy it for now and look at the flubber fly. And on that note, with enormous heifer pals, this giant whitewashed Rayquaza looking fella, I can barely see him all the way over there in some reveal trailer. Might be a beta one, might have got the axe, who knows, might not even be in the final game, but he's looking pretty fresh from over here. Until very recently, Pokemon has had a glaring lack of grizzly bear Pokemon. So if other franchises want to fill that big, meaty, furry void, I'm all for it. Can see why you have this one front and center of all the promos. Got that Ghibli charisma going for it. My Neighbor Totoro would be a very different kind of comfort movie if you gave that hairy bastard a minigun. They know what tickles my brain. This dopey little unit. Is it maybe a bit too close to Clodsire? Perhaps. Do I care? Perhaps. I do not. Just look at him head on. He looks like a Forbidden Simpsons head on shot. The only issue I'm finding when I see big meaty monstrosities such as the Mud, I only wish there were more of it. More of him to be slapping meat about. To be bumping tricep meat as a complete clan. Because here, it feels like an unfinished species. In the spirit of the sweep duo, I feel as though it's missing a smaller, less plump, but still incredibly plump in its own right, pre-evolved form. The one they'd call dumb, who then evolve or go through their machine or whatever that fusion power boost contraption I was too lazy to build was to get the promotion dumb to dummard. Maybe a third and even more bunda-filled form, the man they'd call Dumb Dummard. Let me tell you something, I love the Gobfins. They have that simplistic 90s charm to them. They're like the middle stage evolution to a starter Pokemon. Look primed and ready to evolve into a somehow triple cheeked up for alligator. I'm usually a fan of ones that you know was conceived name first. But above all else, I'm 100% a fan of absolute little freakers. This isn't simply just a pal. I mean, imagine being called a pal, unironically. Come on, don't do me like that. You might as well just go straight for friendo. Greetings and salutations, friendo. You might as well introduce yourself like that.
At least wear it on your sleeve if you're gonna dish out the disrespect.
You don't go on a 3-day bender with a pal. You go with the boys. And the Gobfins, definitely the boys. A hidden banger, keeping themselves a bit low-key in the Palcadex. Moraith. Had no idea it existed until I went out of my way to find it. Might have jump-scared me had I not known what this was. Might have thought it was just a dire howl with the textures bugging out. Would have had me thinking I've stumbled onto the first creepypasta Palworld story, and the lore drop would only solidify that idea.
He can smell the death straight off ya.
You know how, like a dog, he sniffs your crotch a bit too hard? That's just Moraith's way. It's saying he likes you. And you have stage 4. My quest of flying about the world of Pal, hoarding eggs like I'm Eddie Abu, paid off well. Another dangerous boss fight in Jormuntide happily avoided to get a hold of this banger. Because I wasn't going to play another 20 hours leveling up just for the chance of surviving an encounter against what looks to be a Gyarados if the developers thought, you know, Gyarados, he's been looking a bit too natty for our liking. Guy needs a sandwich. A classic BLT will do. Bacon, lettuce, trend. What if Gyarados got raised in an ocean of Liver King's piss? Compared to Gyarados, there's a noticeable difference in let's say vascularity. That ain't Gyarados. That's Gyarados-age. I'd much rather take my town's chances at surviving a Gyarados attack than a Jormuntide. This is like if Gyarados transformed by eating Android 17. Then they were like, you know, Gyarados, he just hasn't got enough hacks going for him. You know, let's let him breathe a bit of fire. Because the other form looks even more world-ending. Much to my surprise, Jormuntide got its own Sonic Adventure 2 backstory, has his own shadow apparently. Cryolinks, what a geezer. Complete henchman of a creature. Those hands yearn for prying copper from houses. This guy is goon maxing. Not in the way that like a Hangyu could goon max. It's such a malleable design. I just can't decide which side of the henchman spectrum are we talking here. What frequency comes out of its mouth seconds before Batman's thighs constrict their neck like an anaconda? You'd think he leans towards the Joe Rogan looking, oh no, it's the bat type goon. But I could equally imagine him with the,
What do we got over here? Wise guy, eh? Saying we've been stealing pals from Pokemon. Hey, whoa, we didn't steal no pals. We just, we found them on the road here. Must have fell off a van or something.
I feel bad assuming the same guys who cooked Tansy surely weren't in the same kitchen Cryolinks was conceived in, but it's pretty clean to me. That's a certified classic buddy. If any pal is migrating to smash pints down Circa's sesh hole, it's gonna be Cryolinks. Universal banger, Gummoss. If Palworld ever somehow had a 90s Pokemania craze, Gummoss is one you're slapping as many places as possible. It's getting that Time magazine Poliwall front cover.
Main event push, brother.
If Palworld had an Ash Ketchum protagonist, this would be like the third one he catches. It's just overflowing with the charm of a classic JRPG enemy. People clutching at straws, scooping at goo, like they dropped the shower gel. Far more difficult than the soap dropping, by the way. Much more compromising. These people thinking, it's just Goomy? Yeah, well, if this is just Goomy, how come it doesn't evolve into Palworldian Goodra? Eh? Much to ponder. I am very glad I landed the catch on the Chillit boss, even with those percentages. Like, how am I catching 0.1% catch rates, but Hydro Pump pulls a wide left every time? You lot who like me are lucky that catch landed, or else I wouldn't be making this video. I probably wouldn't have kept playing. I'm all here for Frosty Furret, because it saved me. If I hadn't caught this in the early game, I don't think I was gonna slog through the rest of it. I would have packed it up for good, left it to rot in the Steam library next to Lego Marvel, where I must have blacked out and bought for £2 on a Steam sale 10 years ago. Don't want to hear any heated furret comparisons. No beef to be had there. Those boys be homies. They be playing on a Palworld server together. This one took me by surprise. I never ran into it during the time I could be bothered to play, but I went back just to see it with my own eyes. Was never aware of the existence of an all-time banger pal like Kitsune. Some kind of Amaterasu reincarnation, for one reason or another deciding not to spawn in an Okami sequel, but cashed in that once-in-a-generation spawn rate to say a quick hello in Palworld, in my land of Friendotropolis even. I'm very flattered. I'm all about it. This is the kind of thing they should be doing for their hidden mythicals, instead of consulting a Mewtwo coloring book. Remember that dinosaur toy that was meant to grow when you sprayed the hose on him? You flushed him down the toilet when it didn't work like the advert said, and 18 years later, he's tracked you down. Relaxaurus Supreme. Banger. Quite possibly my favorite. I think it is. I know this is probably like the Palworld equivalent of saying Charizard is your favorite. I don't care. I love creatures of all franchises and realities who've got that nurse cancel my 1 o'clock belly, and Relaxaurus is more than the 1 o'clock. You slap that belly looking to spectate that flubber fly, you're gonna want to take the week off. What an experience it'd be to just drop 4 grams of shrooms and stare at Relaxaurus and its gelatinous body. And as gluttonous as they allegedly are, he somehow just keeps on giving. Relaxaurus showing us what it's like to go even further beyond. Easy decision having them be the face of the product, having them be the desktop icon. They are both kings, masters of their domain. What a pair of jolly, jelly-like players.